Good evening and welcome to the Hila Wilderness. This is the Hila National Forest, and the Hila is actually the first designated wilderness area in the world. It was established in 1924, which I think makes it a really special place. As somebody who enjoys so much recreating on our public lands, I am eternally grateful to those intelligent humans who thought of protecting these areas. I can't imagine what my life would look like if I didn't have access to the plethora of amazing public lands that I actually do. So, huge gratitude for that. I just finished packing for my backpacking trip, and this trip is a little bit different. I'm bringing a few things that I haven't brought on very many backpacking trips, and I'm actually testing out a piece of gear for the very first time. So in the second half of this video, I'm going to walk you through that actually when I'm at camp, set up so that I can show you the gear for what it is in full use. So that's to come, but before we get there, I wanted to explain a little bit about my journey into the outdoors, what my experience has been, and specifically the courses, mentorships, and certifications that I hold pertaining to the outdoors. My last backpacking video really took off. Honestly, I expected maybe 3,000 people to watch that video. I didn't even expect my regular viewers to watch, and it has hit over 100,000 views, which is great. It's paid my bills for the next 3 months, but I've also introduced an entire new audience to me that wasn't necessarily the kindest, doesn't have any idea who I am, what I do, and what I know, and made a lot of really rude assumptions about me. And I don't feel like I'm speaking to those people in this video, so I'm not going to take this with an air of defense. In fact, it actually highlighted to me the fact that I don't think I've ever anywhere on social media, let alone in front of my camera and put here on YouTube, talked about what my journey into outdoor education has looked like. It's something that really started to come together about 7 years ago, and I wanted to really learn, feel comfortable, and build a skill set. And I'm really proud of the work that I've done with that. So I'm not saying these things to be egotistical, although I am proud of the work I've done and what my skills and abilities are. But I just want to share because as somebody who may be viewing my content, whether it's the regular endless road episodes where I just go on, day hikes, or it's this series of backpacking videos that I'm hoping to do. I want you to have an understanding of what my command is on the topic and the sense of some authority that I might have in this arena. Also, part of what I'm doing here on YouTube is trying to inspire people to live a life of adventure, whatever that looks like for you. And if that looks like wanting to spend more time in the outdoors and getting better acquainted with that process, I just want to share some of the things I did because maybe that's something that you want to do. Maybe you want to use some of these resources to get to know more about the topic, and you may not be aware that all of these resources and opportunities for training and certifications actually even exist. So stepping back quite a few years, I grew up playing in the outdoors, in rural areas, rural Maine, Alaska, and I really fell out of that when I hit my preteens, and that persisted through my 20s. I really lost touch with the outdoors. It wasn't a place where I felt like I belonged or had a right to be. It was very intimidating to me, and I didn't see people like me exploring the outdoors, which is a large part of the reason I am now sharing this, because I want to represent for a greater audience of people, a greater demographic of people. Anyway, around 2015, I started having some more access to YouTube than I had ever before. And I was seeing these YouTube videos of people doing hikes specifically of the Pacific Crest Trail, which I lived not too far from at the time, the Southern California portion, Section A. And their sharing of it made the trail seem so approachable to me. And so I started going out and journeying and put together a small group of people that we would go out and break up sections and shuttle a vehicle. And it really changed a lot of things, so much so that in that same year I started doing overnight trips. From there, I always had a fascination looking at maps. I wanted to be able to read them and understand them better and build my own trips outside of sort of one main trail. And so I actually enrolled in my first course, which was through REI, and it was a navigation and orienteering course. Actually, prior to going to the course, though, which I think was really helpful, is I studied this information that was available on YouTube, and a lot of the information I was getting was from people that were sharing information that was specific to people going through the International Mountain Leader coursework. That is not really something that we have in the US, but it is something that is very common through Europe. I learned as much as I could online, and then when it was time for me to go to the course I enrolled in, it was more of like a practical, hands-on, checking my understanding, and I think I got a lot more from the course having done a lot of that work up front and just being able to like check my understanding. So that was my first course. From there, I participated in multiple group hikes, sometimes led group hikes, led group backpacking trips, partnered trips, and solo trips. From that point, I was starting to really focus on my fitness, which I was building up considerably in anticipation of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail in 2020. So in January of 2020, I enrolled in a mountaineering course, an introduction to mountaineering course that I took in the Sierra Nevada, again in January, and that was a really strong focus on mountaineering tools, how to use them, winter conditions, how to not just survive, but be comfortable enough to call it recreation. And that was a challenging trip, but it was incredible, and I learned a lot from some guides with real certifications. I'm going to mention this a couple of times probably, but I think that it's really important that when you're looking at guided opportunities to be looking for people with real strong certifications. Look where their guiding education is, if they have any certifications, because in the United States it is not a requirement to have an overarching guide certification. So there are plenty of people out there that are guides that maybe are lacking in a lot of hands-on, thorough experience, whereas, for example, in Europe, you're not going to find that. In order to call yourself a guide, you need to have certain qualifications. More on that in a minute. After that multi-day intro to mountaineering course, the next month I went to Scotland, did a Scottish Highlands trek in February, again winter conditions. It was a group trip, so not necessarily a course, but the international mountain leader who led that trip has a strong focus on building individuals into sufficient hikers where they feel confident with the skills that they have to no longer be feeling like they need to be assisted in group events. So I did learn and just build my confidence through that trek. From there, I was supposed to hike the Pacific Crest Trail, but we all know what happened in the spring of 2020. We went into lockdown. And so some hiking and backpacking became inaccessible for a while, as well as a lot of guided trips and opportunities for courses were canceled. However, some things did move online. And during that time, a person who I have a lot of respect for, have read some books and listened to talks, and was a National Geographic Adventure of the Year, Andrew Skirka, offered an online backpack planning course. So I did enroll in the backpack trip planning course, and that was really interesting, and I gained a lot from that experience. And again, that wasn't a huge commitment. It wasn't very expensive. I don't know if it's something he's still offering, but I think that there are other opportunities to take similar courses if one is interested in doing that. And from that point on, for the next year, I really moved into a lot more solo backpacking. I did my first off-trail cross-country route, and actually did a couple of them in which I picked my own route and did a lot of work with navigation, orienteering, looking at maps and planning routes, creating GPX files and uploading them into my GPS. Really started to actually do even some 4-season trips. I did a couple of winter trips, and really focused on building out my skill set from that point and logging hours on trail. This is important because in the next year I was invited to join the board of directors for the American Hiking Guide Association, whose objective is to create a program that's adjacent to where the certification that you earn through the American Hiking Guide Association could translate to an international mountain leader certification, and thus American guides with that certification could then go to Europe and also guide. That would be really nice for people that are interested in building out a clientele and going to different areas with that American-based clientele in order to guide. Something that's extremely challenging for just a standard backpacking guide, not necessarily like climbing or mountaineering, but non-technical, not high alpine guide. So yeah, I became part of that initiative, and through that introduction was invited with a sponsored opportunity to take a backpacking guide course. I visited Delaware Water Gap, where I took a multiple day course led by a man named Joey Volpes, who owns a guiding company as well as works with a lot of government contractors for things like search and rescue, and just he's really very reputable and well vetted, and this guy knows what he's talking about, and took myself and several others through a multi-day backpacking guide course where we were led through some curriculum. However, prior to being able to even take that course, I had to meet some prerequisites, which meant that I needed to become a Leave No Trace certified trainer. So that's all about outdoor ethics, taking care of the environment. I not only needed to learn that information for myself, but I needed to take a course where I was able to help others learn that. And that was a multi-week course that I did, as well as I attained my wilderness first aid certification. And then I needed to have 250 trail hours, with a certain number, I think being overnight trips, logged, and I had well exceeded that number. So that was my prerequisite for taking the backpacking guide course, which I did. From there, in order to gain my guiding certificate through the American Hiking Guides Association, I basically would just need to log more hours of guiding group trips in an unofficial capacity. That's where I haven't done that because I primarily hike solo. And the reason I do that is frankly just for convenience. As you know, I've been nomadic for the past 5 years, and I move around a lot. Sometimes I have a full-time job or more than full-time job, and so I just jump at opportunities when they come up, and I feel more nimble and flexible with planning, just handling things on my own. I feel comfortable and confident hiking and backpacking by myself. I do recognize that there is safety in numbers, but I also have confidence in my skill set, and a lot of that has to do with the support and the training and the mentorship of all of the programs that I just mentioned. So if you're looking to step into the outdoors in that kind of way, I want to just let you know that there are resources to do that. And also, I don't mean anybody any disrespect, but when they tell me how I need to be doing something, or that I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm unprepared, I kindly say, I don't care what you think about that, because there are experts that have vetted me and certified me in this area. So I make thoughtful decisions based on myself, my body, my experience, and my education. Good morning. I'm just waking up here in the Hila wilderness of New Mexico after a one-night backpacking trip. This was camp for last night, and it is really something special. Video to come on this. However, today we are packing up, and as I do that, I want to walk with you through my system, what I have for backpacking, what my essentials are. It did get down to maybe the 20s last night. That's at least what it was forecasted. Honestly, it didn't feel like it to me, but maybe that's because my system was pretty darn effective. So as I pack my backpack this morning, we're going to walk through what I have. Speaking of my backpack is a 40-liter pack made by Hyperlight Mountain Gear here in the USA in the state of Maine, and it is an ultralight pack. I've had this backpack since 2020, and I've used it a ton on multi-day trips, even with bear canister. I've used it on, day hike peak bagging. I brought it with me to Europe and traveled on trains and planes and hiked through the Alps in this. With this, and so it has proven to be quite versatile and effective and really, really durable. It hardly shows any signs of wear after all of this time. So this is a product I definitely stand by. I am an affiliate for them as well as a number of these other brands. So if you want to shop through the links in the description, it does help out and support the channel. A 40-liter backpack is smaller than I'd say a lot of people carry on backpacking trips, especially multi-night backpacking trips. But I do have a system in place on how I pack it, so that's going to be included in this video as well because we're going to be going through my gear as I start packing the bag. So the first thing we're going to start with is my sleeping bag. My sleeping bag is made by Sierra Designs. This is their backcountry bed. It's a 20-degree rated bag. What I really love about this bag is it is zipperless. I am a side sleeper and a more full-bodied person, and so for me, having the flexibility of being zipperless, I can still bungee this down and stay plenty warm, but I can also kind of move it with me as I move from side to side in my sleep, and honestly, I sleep so much better in this than a conventional mummy style bag. It also, on warmer nights, has a toe box where I can actually kick my feet out of this if I want to and cool my body down a little bit. So I find that this style of sleeping bag actually has a lot of flexibility. I don't know if this exact product is still available. This one is at least 5 years old now. So I'm going to link the similar replacement product below. The key is to make sure it's all the way at the bottom, filling in all the space down there. Okay, we're good. The next thing that gets loaded into my bag before it gets too full is my water bladder. So this is a 2.5-liter Hydro Pack. This is where I keep the water that I'm drinking while I'm on trail, and there is a little slot that this slides down into in the pack. These other things I have in my hand are, this is an extra 2.5 liters for water. This is just a reserve for any particularly dry carries, dry camp, anything like that. And then generally how I load up on water while out on trail is going to be this right here. This is my water filter. It's the Katadyn Be-Free water filter. I really like this. I find that the flow rate maintains really well. It's easy to use. And I have used some other lightweight ones like the Sawyer Squeeze and Sawyer Mini, which are both good products as well, but this is my preferred. Okay, I'm going to put this in the bottom of the pack. Just shove it down in here, but this stays out for now. Taking a look at the rest of my sleep system, I have my sleeping pad, which is the Big Agnes Divide. I accidentally bought the long one. I don't need one that's this tall, but yeah. Whoopsie. I do like that sleeping pad a lot, again, as a side sleeper and as somebody who has a larger frame. It's just nice to have the additional loft. I feel like it cradles me really well, and I prefer it to any of the other sleeping pads that I've owned. Um, this is something that came specifically for this trip because of the overnight temperatures. My sleeping bag is rated to 20 degrees. This is a fleece liner. It's a thermalite reactor by Sea to Summit, and this adds an additional layer of warmth and makes that sleeping bag, I'm not sure how much warmer it is, but it made a big difference, and it honestly just feels so cozy. I wish I could bring this on every trip, but the weight is not much, but the bulk is is a little annoying. And then I've got my pillow here. This is the Arrows pillow, again by Sea to Summit. It's an inflatable pillow. It's pretty comfy. There's something I add to the pillow, and that is this fleece neck gaiter. I just put this over my pillow as if it is a pillowcase. Keeps my pillow clean from trip to trip to trip because I wash this after every trip. And also, if need be, I do have a neck gaiter. It's kind of versatile. I could put it on my head, I could put it around my neck, I could put it over my face if it's really cold. So it's not bad to have this as a multi-purpose item. So as you can see, the way I'm packing this down right now is both of these are going to go, these two items are going to go vertical. The pillow is going to just get shoved down there, and then my jet boil is going to come right between these two and fill out that space. So this is the jet boil stash. It's my camping stove. That's primarily just used for boiling hot water. I really try not to use it for cooking. It's not really designed for that. So that's going to get shoved down right in here. And you want to put the heavier things closer to your body. So push that back. Now we see that there's open gaps in space all throughout here. This is where I'm going to grab all my clothing items and shove it into every nook and cranny. So I don't actually bring extra clothes to hike in. I hike in the same clothes every single day, and I just bring sleep clothes for camp. For this trip, I just have a pair of leggings. These are like softer style athletic leggings, as well as this is like a thermal layer top. What I would really recommend having is merino wool base layers. That's a good versatile option to have. I personally just know that I prefer these items, so that's why I bring them, but a good rule of thumb would be merino wool base layers. I have a beanie to keep my head warm, and I have my down insulative layers. So I'm wearing my puffy down coat right now, it's Patagonia, and then I have my Mountain Hardwear Ghost Whisperer light down pants and my goose down booties from Z-Pack. Okay, up next we're going to be looking at some of my stuff sacks as well as my first aid kit. It's pretty standard. I think I added a few things to it. I'm not going to go through it all, but this is a pretty bulky first aid kit. I started carrying this after I had wilderness first aid training. I never use this. Electronics ditty bag. The bag is made by Z-Pack, so it's super lightweight and very durable. I have a Sharpie with Leuko tape on it, multi-tool bug net, some patches, headlamp, battery bank for my devices, and then this is my toileting kit, doggy bag that I use to pack out toilet paper, a shovel, hand sanitizer here, toilet paper, and wipe. Since we're on the topic, I don't keep this in that bag. I keep this out and more handy, and this is for wiping with pee. It's called a Hila cloth, and it's a hygienic way to wipe that doesn't create waste. Now we're at the part of the packing process where I have to take down my tent. I have all of the other stuff that was inside my tent already packed away in my backpack, and so when I get to camp, if I was packing to go to camp, I would unpack my tent first. And that really helps, especially if it's raining or just in general, because once you set the tent up, then you have a place to put all the stuff instead of scattering it around everywhere. So yeah, the tent is the last thing in, so it can be the first thing out. Very similar, like I did with the clothes, how I shove them down into all the nooks and crannies. I'm going to do that same thing with the fabric of my tent, and then the tent poles actually live on a side pocket outside of the main pack.
My backpacking tent is my newest piece of backpacking gear, and so far I really like it. It's the Big Agnes Copper Spur UL1.
Just a couple other little things that go right here on top are my camp shoes. These are the Zero sandals, and my Ursack with my food in it.
Ursack is a critter and bear-proof Kevlar
I'm
sack.
going to go ahead and start loading up my side pockets. I really do always try to keep things in the same spot, so much as they are something that always comes with me, just because then I'll always know where it is, be able to find it quickly if I need it. A lot of times my trekking poles will live on this side, inside their stuff sack, but since I am starting my day with 18 water crossings, I'm keeping my trekking poles out. The time has come to load up my front pocket. This is where my water filter goes down in here. Sunscreen, gloves, my sit pad, my book just 'cause, and then my socks from yesterday. I'm starting my day off with these neoprene socks because I will be doing water crossings early this morning. I want to do my best to keep my feet warm. As much as possible, you're really not going to see me with a whole lot of things hanging off my backpack. One, I just don't like the aesthetic or feeling of it. And two, I do think it makes you more prone to hazards, to getting caught up on things. And yeah, it's best practice to sort of keep things real nice and tight. Now I'm going to load up the things I want on my body. My hat. I always have a hat with me. Whether or not I choose to wear it is dependent. Sunglasses, polarized sunglasses, and my bum bag. Inside here I have my map, my Garmin InReach, my knife, and I'll keep my cell phone and microphones in it when they're not in use. And then up front is where I keep any little snacks I have. Yeah, this goes on my body and it doesn't really come off until camp. So that's why I keep my Garmin in here, because sometimes I'll wander off the trails a little way to use the restroom, and in that case I'll throw down my big pack, but this pack will stay on me. So if something were to happen to me, if I were to fall during that time and not be able to get back to the trail where my big pack is, I have this with my Garmin inside. Well, I know some of you will be curious about how much my pack weighs, and unfortunately I can't tell you, but I also know it doesn't weigh that much. So I'm happy with my setup. Again, if you're interested in shopping what I have, you'll find links in the video description. And I'll catch you on the next one.